Welcome back to Intervals Part 3. Today I'm going to be looking at augmented and diminished intervals, and I'm going to cover compound intervals as well. Right, so we have augmented. If you augment something, you make it bigger. And in this case, you make it bigger by one semitone. And then diminished would be the other way round. So diminished, if you make something diminished, you make it smaller. So again, you make it smaller by one semitone. Now, we have to be really careful on augmented and diminished intervals that we are counting first, because what we have is diminished intervals can be written in different ways, and if we get it wrong, we basically end up using enharmonic notes, which are notes that sound the same but are written in different ways. For example, an E is an F flat and an F is an E sharp. Same notes, different names. So that is an enharmonic note. Same sounding note, different name. So we have to be really careful about those. So let's have a look at an example. Say, for example, I want to create a diminished unison note. So a unison note could be two C's, that would be unison. Now, if I want to make it diminished, I need to make one of them lower. So I'm going to make the second one lower by putting a flat in front of it. Now, that is written as a diminished unison. But if you were to play that on an instrument, it would sound as C and B, because C flat is the same note as B. But if I was to write that, C to B, I've actually written a minor second. That's where it gets a little bit confusing, and it's where I see most people making mistakes, because they don't do the counting part first. They try and work out what the actual note is and do it that way, and that is where we have our biggest problems on augmented and diminished intervals. Do the counting first. Count first from the lowest note. It makes life a lot easier. So, diminished, we're making it smaller by a semitone. Let's have a look at an augmented interval for a second. They all work exactly the same. So say, for example, we have C to A, which we know is a major sixth. Hopefully you've watched some of the other videos. C to A, C is 1, D is 2, E is 3, F is 4, G is 5, and A is 6. That is a major sixth. Now, if I want to diminish that, I have to do more than just stick a flat on top. If I stick a flat on top, on the top note, that is a minor sixth. So what I can do to diminish that even further is I can stick a double flat on it, or I can stick a sharp on the bottom note. Now, if I want to go the other way, if that's diminished, if I want to augment, I've got C and A again, so that's our major sixth. Nice and easy one for augmentation. I can just stick a sharp on the top note, that moves it up one semitone, so that becomes an augmented sixth. It's plus one semitone. Or, and you shouldn't really get this in the exam because they do tend to stick to putting the intervals on top, I could make that a C flat. That would also be an augmented sixth because that bottom note has then moved one semitone down. Let's do another example. Let's go for, let's put an F at the bottom, and let's do an octave. That's a nice interesting one. So here I have a perfect octave, or a perfect eighth. So if I want to make that augmented, all I have to do is stick a sharp on the top note. That moves it up away from the bottom note by one semitone. So that is now an augmented eighth, or an augmented octave. If I want to go the other way, I can just stick a flat on the top note, and that becomes a diminished eighth, or a diminished octave. Now, back to what I said about enharmonic notes earlier. F to F sharp, nice and easy one to look at there, but F to F flat is the same sounding as F to E. So if we haven't counted first, putting F and putting E would sound the same as that, but that is actually a seventh. So if you count that, that is a seventh, that is an eighth. This is what I mean about being super careful about counting first, doing the counting first, then working everything out. So just to recap a bit of that, if you augment something, you're making it bigger by one semitone. If you're diminishing something, you're making it smaller by a semitone. Be super careful to count first. Diminished intervals will either have a sharp at the bottom and a flat at the top, bringing them closer together. And augmented intervals will have a flat at the bottom or a sharp on top, making them move away from each other. Right, I'm going to just talk about compound intervals for a moment. Now, we get bigger intervals in grade 8 than your octave. Sorry, in grade 5 than your octave. We do go over the octave, and that's all a compound interval is. You can either count up all of the notes. So say, for example, I've got a C here and an E here. If I count up all of my lines and spaces, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, D, E. So that is a tenth. Just count C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, D, E. That is a tenth. And that is actually a major tenth because it is C to E. So if I take the octave out, if I just write C and E, we can see a bit closer there, that is a major third. All you do to make it that proper interval here is add the word compound. Compound adds an octave. So that is a major third, that is a major tenth. So that, another word for that, is a compound major third. So you just add your octave. Right, hope that's kind of cleared a few things up. As I've said before, these videos are aimed at my students, so I have covered quite a lot of this in their lessons already. I'm quite happy to go into details in a lot more. If there's something specific you want me to cover in a video, just let me know. Thank you.